Tonight, town saved in a desperate night. The weather delivers relief, but the danger is far from over. Live reports and special coverage from fire zones. The children caught in a fire disaster rescued at last after 5 days trapped. A new warning as heavy smoke chokes towns. Help for victims. The PM sets up a national bushfire recovery agency and a message in the rush to help fire victims. As Melbourne queues stretch a kilometre and an Aussie star raises $23 million.
Live from our Melbourne headquarters, this is 7 News with Blake Johnson.
Good evening. 48 fires rage across Victoria tonight in a crisis authorities say is far from over. Emergency teams say the threat has eased, but fires are dynamic and dangerous and are with us for a long time. Here's the situation. Authorities can't account for 4 people. That's down 2 from this time last night. 18 communities remain isolated. Smoke from the fires is emerging as a significant health threat. The big fear is that major blazes in Victoria and New South Wales will merge to form one mega fire.
This is the view above Corryong. Terrifying, giant plumes as the fire there moves east.
The thing that's making it so hard to pull up at the moment is the fuel level on the ground. It's dry and there's way too much of it.
On the ground, frontline firefighters fear it will soon merge with blazes in New South Wales, create fire.
We know these fires are with us for a long time.
CFA crews are caught in the middle, attacking it from both sides.
Obviously the fires are really bad in New South Wales. Resources are stretched to the limit and we can't be everywhere.
Eden is under major threat by fires which have already merged across the border. 48 blazes are raging across Victoria tonight. They've gone through 900,000 hectares, 700,000 of them in East Gippsland.
The rain and the sky has just opened up and it's starting to pour down and it's absolutely wonderful.
The weather change delivered rain, but nowhere near enough to make a real difference.
If we were to receive about 200 millimetres of rainfall in a very short period, over a few-day period, that would have a significant impact.
Emergency teams say the threat is far from over, with more hot weather and more danger coming our way on what they call spike days on Thursday and Friday.
It is still dynamic, it is still dangerous.
In the gloom, some good news. The little faces of the disaster finally rescued from Malakuta, where they'd been trapped since Tuesday.
I'm sorry, I can't talk much. Emotional.
The children were too young to board Navy vessels, so the Army was called to chopper them out.
I am so impressed with the resilience of the kids in this town.
There are rescue missions happening in towns across Victoria. Last night, it was Omeo's turn. The choppers sent in to move more locals as the fires headed their way. It got within 4 kilometres. 18 towns are still cut off in the fire crisis. It could be days before they are reopened. Emergency crews are working to get back into the towns to reassess the damage and work out if they're safe for locals to return to whatever is left.
And as a minimum, provide them with communication, satellite phones, and offer opportunities for people to leave those isolated communities.
MFB crews from Melbourne helped save Bright in a fierce firefight. Authorities warn smoke is a new problem in towns like Myrtleford.
You just can't breathe, you can't sleep. I think the only good thing is I've lost my appetite, so with a bit of luck I'll lose some weight.
Wangaratta has become a refuge, welcoming anyone forced to flee their homes.
Just thinking of them doing that for us.
The smoke was so bad in Tallangatta, Premier Daniel Andrews couldn't land and had to return to Melbourne.
We'd hoped to be able to look at some of the fire damage along the way and on the way back to Melbourne. We simply couldn't do that.
While the PM launched a national bushfire recovery agency.
What most importantly is needed is that we just keep working together, and we are.
Which was news to Victoria's Police Minister.
Look, it is really unclear. We have no details. I saw it on the TV.
Tonight we are in Buchan, just north of Lakes Entrance, home to the famous Buchan Caves. And this is one of 24 homes that have been destroyed in this town. The ferocity must have been so intense. It's close to town. The main street is actually just on the hill here at the bottom as the bend starts. Thankfully, town is intact. But down there today, I spoke with 70-year-old sheep farmer Jeff McColl. He spoke with me about what happened here when he lost his home. He said he'd planned to fight it with his wife. It was so fierce that they fled here into town. But he spoke about his frustration at trying to get authorities to clear the fuel load in the mountains that surround Buchan.
It was a huge concern for years, and nobody stepped up to take control of it. But it's not just there; it's everywhere. It's hard to describe. That it's just got a big sinking feeling.
Local resident here, Mick Roberts, died in this fire. The townsfolk here are heartbroken. The town is still without power. The roads are blocked coming into town. The residents who are still here are eating all their meals at the local oval because, Blake, it's simply not clear when they're going to get power on.
All right, Paul Dowsley in Buchan, thank you. There are fears tonight that homes have been lost near Corryong in the Upper Murray region. Georgia Comensoli is at the Incident Control Centre in Tallangatta. Georgia, what's the situation there?
Blake, the Corryong fire is now over 160,000 hectares in size and it's crossed the border. Fire crews say they're not trying to stop the blaze but save communities and homes. Their message to the hundreds of people who've decided to stay and defend their homes is that they may not be able to reach you and they also may not be able to bring you any essential resources for weeks. In the line of fire,
it's just across the road.
Cattle caught up near Corryong as conditions worsened overnight. The CFA station at Toowong was taunted by flames that are believed to have destroyed properties. For residents who evacuated the area days ago, it's been an agonising wait for news as they see pictures like this online. One man who stayed behind tried to allay fears.
We are safe. I cannot reiterate that enough.
But that's not the official message.
The fire this afternoon is continuing to burn in the eastern section of the fire along the Murray River.
The fire perilously close to joining with one over the border in New South Wales.
Probably less than 10 k's in some places.
This town was destroyed 2 nights ago, but despite the fire having already passed through here, the town of Tumbarumba is still under threat, with fire zones still active in both the south and the north of where we are. A monster blaze would cause more scenes like this. Brett Northern has already saved homes.
I think you just get in that fight or flight mode, so you just don't really think about that, you just do what you got to do.
He may need to save more.
It is what it is, you just got to be ready for it.
Community meeting has just finished here in Tallangatta. Residents are now scared the fire may come down into town. The Incident Control Centre here behind me will be moving in the next few days to Wodonga. So it seems everyone around the border northeast are hunkering down for the long haul. Blake?
All right, Georgia, thank you. The flames aren't the only threat in this crisis tonight. The heavy smoke means air quality is now becoming a big issue. Tegan Dolling joins us from Bright. Tegan, we can see the air there is choked with smoke.
There is very heavy smoke out here at the moment, Blake, in this alpine region. We've obviously been out in it for most of the day. Your eyes are sore, your throat's scratchy, and it has been incredibly hard to breathe. Luckily, though, with this bit of rain that we have seen around, it's slowly starting to move through from what was a bright orange glow this morning. Now, just to give you an idea of how bad it is, the EPA has issued a hazardous air quality warning. At a maximum that usually sits at around 500, here in Bright it is currently sitting at 999. The Bright Hospital has been evacuated as a precaution and locals are being urged to stay indoors or better yet relocate to somewhere safer.
And Tegan, which areas are of most concern to fire crews tonight?
Well, the threat has eased. There is still an evacuation order just down in Wandillagong. That's just south of Brighton. Here behind me, you can see these police officers that have actually travelled up from Melbourne. They're blocking off the Mount Buffalo Road. There is a fire still out of control over the other side of Mount Buffalo, and there are fears that that could slowly start to creep towards the south of the Myrtleford township. So obviously, with those warnings, the police are out door knocking those in the King Valley, making sure that everybody is staying safe, especially with these emergency warnings at nearby townships. Now, the fear is that the ember attacks could quickly cause the fire to grow and then take off towards these country tourist hotspots, which at the moment, Blake, are more like ghost towns.
You better get that face mask back on. Thank you, Tegan. The small alpine town of Omeo is still cut off, but out of danger tonight after a very close call. Dozens of locals were evacuated by a small fleet of military and police helicopters as the fires headed for the town.
A scene from a war zone where bushfire is the enemy. Defence forces defending the people of Omeo by ferrying them away from danger, a lifeline for some.
My nephew's wife and their 3 kids went to Bairnsdale on one, and it was just a safe haven for them.
But an option not available to others.
I would love to evacuate, but I've got too many animals.
With helicopters only for humans, Brett Haddon and his sled dogs spent the night at the showgrounds.
They know what's going on, but they're still, as long as I'm here, they're okay.
The cooler morning gave residents like Brett the courage to return home and to see whether or not there was still a home to go to. His neighbour's house just survived.
The flames come up the mountain ridge there, and it's just going woof all the way around it. This is a godsave.
This shows just how unpredictable Victoria's weather can be. Last night, just 12 hours ago, there was flames coming up this hill. At the moment, it is less than 10 degrees, and now it is raining. CFA crews spent the day patrolling what's still an active fire ground. Overnight, firefighters were forced to retreat to Mount Hotham while protecting Dinner Plain, but their efforts paid off. The township today deserted but intact. Residents have praised local authorities for keeping information flowing about the ever-changing fire threat. Relieved to have a safe spot in town to shelter, but anxious at the thought they may be back there before the summer's over.
These fires are going to burn for months, and conceivably I'm not going to stay here for months. I'm going to go home while I can, and if I have to leave, then I'll leave again at a later date.
Tom Chadwick, 7 News.
The Governor-General says the country must reflect on how we are dealing with the bushfire crisis. General David Hurley met evacuees as he toured relief centres in Gippsland.
We're going to have a period of deep reflection, I think, in the country. There are different views of why we're in the situation we're in. All that, I think, as a nation, we just got to have a good hard think about.
He's vowed to continue visiting fire-affected communities for the next few months. Well, the weather provided some relief in the firefight, but it's likely to be short-lived. Estelle Grieping has details. Estelle, what's coming up for those fire zones?
Well, Blake, unfortunately, dangerous conditions could return later in the week, but today was much cooler. Temperatures today were mostly in the teens. In Bairnsdale, the top was 16, a far cry from yesterday's 35. The good news is that light rain began moving through Gippsland and the high country this afternoon, and that should continue tomorrow. Most of our fire-affected areas should get rain, but it won't be as significant in the far east in places like Mallacoota or over the fires in Corryong. Since 9 this morning, Bairnsdale has received about 3 millimetres. Omeo has had just under 1.5, as has Buchan. But while conditions have temporarily eased, our fire zones could get back into the 30s later this week. I'll have the details soon.
Estelle, thank you. Scott Morrison has launched a new federal agency to oversee the rebuild of fire-ravaged towns. The authority will lead the recovery effort, paid for by the Commonwealth, but the announcement didn't shield the PM from more fire controversy.
Still in the firing line and back onto the fire ground, Prime Minister Scott Morrison visits a naval base in Nowra.
Been able to jump in there.
With the New South Wales Premier and the RFS Commissioner Shane Fitzsimmons, who earlier blasted the federal government for keeping him in the dark on the Army Reservists call-out.
I was disappointed and I was frustrated.
Claiming he was only made aware minutes before the announcement and left spending hours trying to figure out what to do next.
In the middle of what was one of our worst days ever on record.
I left that National Security Committee meeting and then went out and I contacted premiers.
And more criticism for what followed the announcement. Moments after yesterday's press conference, this video appeared on Scott Morrison's social media feed. People accused it of looking like a Liberal Party ad, but the PM today rejected that, saying he was only trying to communicate with the public.
To inform the community about what the Commonwealth Government is doing.
wanting to focus on today's announcement, a new federal agency to run bushfire recovery for the next years. Led by former AFP boss Andrew Colvin, it'll oversee a complete rebuild of towns and organise income and mental health support. Scott Morrison also acknowledged that many lessons will be learnt during this bushfire season and was open to the idea of a royal commission.
Every summer we handle it differently, and every summer we handle it better.
Moving his family to Canberra for the time being, many hope the Prime Minister is finally seeing through the haze. Jennifer Beshwati, 7 News.
In southern New South Wales, a bushfire has claimed the life of a man who suffered a heart attack as he battled to protect his friend's property. Dozens more homes have been lost in the unrelenting fire emergency.
Batlow, famed for its red apples, its landscape today black and as foreign as the moon, silent, charred, twisted.
Someone's house has just gone up. We're just waiting for it to come over that hill.
And overwhelmed by a monster they knew was coming.
It's very sobering.
At least 20 homes were lost here.
Houses can be rebuilt, but for the few who thought they'd bunker down at home just to get them out, make them realise you will not live through it.
One man did not. David Harrison from Goulburn, helping friends defend their home.
We did everything we could. We did everything that was possible, but he was just unfortunately unable to be revived.
I want everyone to know that Dave died doing what Dave always does, and that's helping other people. Rest in peace, little brother.
At Bundanoon in the Southern Highlands, the cruel extremes of nature, the melodic sounds and the terrible images of what fire can do. A tap was still running from when the family that lived here ran themselves. Firefighter John O'Connor was called to rescue his own home.
And I said, "Where is it?" And he said, "Oh, it's 377 Bundanoon Road." I said, "Don't hang around. It's home."
We did what we could until the experts turned up.
There's no one in attendance at the house and it's unseen from the road. Well, we could possibly lose property due to this.
Wingello was even worse than its neighbours. The Emergency Services Minister walking through the ruins this afternoon with RFS Deputy Rob Rogers. Families were told to flee here about 11 last night before the area was overrun. Exeter too.
It was really thick with smoke and we were getting embers falling around, so it was just, we just got out of there.
In Wingello, Robert Ovadia, 7 News.
An Australian comedian has raised a staggering $23 million to help with the bushfire crisis. Celeste Barber's social media appeal has been flooded with donations from around the world, but she's just one of many making a difference.
Never one to just talk the talk, comedian Celeste Barber hit the shops at Tweed Heads.
We're just getting all stuff together now for to send down to the fireys. Our family have just been evacuated, so I'm slightly stressed.
On Friday night, Celeste shared photos from her mother-in-law's home in Eden and launched an appeal.
We're on fire. This is hell on earth.
The call went out to her millions of followers.
Babe, guess what we're at? 2 million.
By lunchtime today, it hit $21 million. The money, Celeste says, will be split among communities and services which need it most.
People are amazing. Power to the people. Someone needed to do something, and the people do something.
11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
At the Gold Coast's Magic Millions Polo, actress Rebel Wilson auctioned 2 lunches for $100,000.
Everyone just has that helping spirit, and it's hard to know what to do sometimes.
Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban pledged $500,000 to rural fire services, the same from pop star Pink. The Queen praising the emergency services and those who put their lives in danger. Her granddaughter also touched by the tragedy.
I mean, it's awful. It's, the photos and the footage that you see is just devastating.
Tennis star Ash Barty pledged her Brisbane International Prize money.
Tennis is a sport. It's a game that we play, and there are certainly a lot of bigger things going on in Australia right now that we need to take care of.
As Aussies Nathan Lyon, Pat Cummins and Mitchell Stark today delivered $1,000 for every wicket claimed. The sound of unwavering support. Tom Hartley, 7 News.